Welcome in or welcome back to Behind the Mic in the SEC. This week we're talking to Simone Elias, the sports director at WKRG in Mobile, Alabama. She covers University of Alabama. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you? Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
No, thank you. I'm doing good. So I just want to start by asking, how did you get your start in this field, and how did you start your career?
Yeah, so it's a funny story. When I went to school, college at Bowling Green State University, I went on a basketball scholarship, and I really didn't know what I wanted to major in. And I originally started out as an education major, but eventually got switched over into journalism, broadcast journalism, because I was like, okay, I don't want to have to teach, and I don't want to really have to do math courses or specialize in anything school wise. All I like to do is talk and talk about sports. And so my advisor was like, okay, why don't you go, talk about sports for a living? And I was like, that's a good idea. And so I ended up getting into broadcast journalism, and that's where I graduated. That's my degree that I graduated with, and started out my career in Mobile, Alabama, which is actually where I am now. It's kind of come all full circle. I started covering Alabama and the SEC and Auburn as well right off the bat in my career. That was almost 11 years ago now. I've been in Houston, I've been in Birmingham, and family reasons, I came back down to Mobile. I have a child, and I'm the sports director here now, and so I really enjoy this market. Of course, I really enjoy being able to cover the greatest college football in the country, the greatest college athletics in the country, and I think that not only football but also basketball. I mean, the SEC is where it's at, and so it's been super, super rewarding and fun to be able to be down here in the Southeastern Conference.
So being a female sports director, that's pretty cool. That's one of my goals in my career. What was that like
Oh,
whenever you got promoted to that position?
yeah, I just actually got promoted to this position about 2 months ago, and it was very rewarding. It was something that I've worked for a really long time, and I've worked under several great sports directors, and I've learned a lot about how to manage a sports department, how to not manage a sports department, how to treat people who kind of work below you or people that you hire, and the right way to go about things. And so I really take all of those things into my day to day now, into who we hired as our weekend sports anchor, and also, I'm proud to represent women in leadership roles in broadcasts, especially in sports, because there was a time where this just wouldn't happen, but that wasn't that long ago. And women deserve to be in these roles. We've earned our voice, and we have things to say about sports that matter. And I think more and more it's becoming the norm to see women really take over in this industry, not only to cover women's sports, but also men's sports, regardless of what some men want to say about it.
Yeah. So you kind of have a unique perspective, some of different than other people I've talked to. You have a family. What's it like
Mhm.
juggling your work? I mean, it's demanding having to
Mhm.
work, holidays, weekends, late nights, having to
Yeah.
travel. How is it like balancing your family and your job?
Yeah, it's really hard, and I don't try to pretend that it's not, because I think that people who want to do what I do and raise a family and also have being full-time television need to know that it's a challenging thing. It's rewarding. It's I wouldn't change it for the world. My son is the greatest blessing of my whole entire life. My husband's a high school football coach, and so we have a very, very demanding fall, but year round it's difficult, and you really have to balance what's important to you, and also make time for your work, also make time for what you're doing at home. And it's all, like I said, it's all about finding balance. I don't think I've perfectly found the balance yet myself, being the sports director and having a almost 1.5 year old, but I try to do my best. I try to give everybody around me who depends on me the best that I can. And so at the end of the day, I can put my head on my pillow and rest easy, knowing that I'm there for my son and whatever he needs, my husband as well, but also trying to kick butt in my career as well.
What's it like covering the SEC from your perspective? Like the fan base, the sports, like what's your perspective on the SEC?
Yeah, not being from here, when I first kind of immersed into the SEC, the Iron Bowl, Alabama, Auburn, I was like, wow, like these people are passionate. And that's one of the biggest words that come to mind, is that these folks live and die for SEC sports, especially SEC football, but especially in this state in Alabama, where the Crimson Tide, obviously, the Tigers as well. When I first got here, it was like a shock to the system almost. But over time, I realized, okay, this is really just a way of life. This is what matters down here. And they say, the SEC just means more. I mean, like that's kind of like a silly slogan at times, but I really believe that it to be true. I mean, these fans are diehard. Of course, there's fans everywhere in the Big Ten, the Big 12, the ACC, and those are all very great conferences that have their great rivalries. But I might be biased, but to cover the SEC, to cover the rivalries in this league is tremendous. It's a ton of fun, and really there's becoming more and more even across the board. There's becoming more parity in the SEC, and in seeing other teams that maybe weren't always top-notch programs start to do better and better. And it's actually making it more enjoyable, in my opinion, because we're not seeing just this huge dominance by one or two programs.
Have you ever covered another conference, like another Power Five or big conference outside of the SEC? And if so,
Yeah.
how is that different? Like, how is the SEC different from all the other conferences that you've gotten to cover?
That's a really good question. I covered the Big Ten, and I also covered the Big 12. And then I also covered the Sun Belt down here. I know that's a group of five, but mostly speaking, when it comes to the Big 12 and the Big Ten, I don't know. I don't know why it felt different. I mean, maybe part of it was because around a lot of those areas, there's a lot of other options for um other fan bases. Okay, so like there's other maybe smaller schools, or there's NFL programs, or franchises, or it just didn't feel like there was just this huge attachment to these specific teams. And you come to Alabama, and Alabama and Auburn is outside of your mid-major schools. That's all there is. There aren't any professional leagues, so to speak, in this state. So people really tie their entire life and fan base to Alabama and Auburn. Of course, we have South Alabama, and we have UAB and Samford, and teams that do really, really well at mid-major level, but we don't have these huge, like the Dallas Cowboys and the Cincinnati Bengals to compete against. Like, this is what people look forward to, and that's college athletics. So from my experience being in Alabama, it's been easy to see why people are so passionate about it, because it's really the biggest thing they have to focus on.
What would you say is your favorite sport to cover? I mean, I know a lot of people will say football, but outside of
Yeah.
that, maybe what is your favorite sport to cover?
Outside of football is probably basketball. And I know that's kind of cliche, but I played basketball. So I played college basketball at Bowling Green State University. And so I know the game, not only as like a sports anchor or reporter, but I know the game, what it's like to be in the locker room. I understand the X's and O's of it. Whereas football, again, it doesn't make us not it's not that we don't have the ability to talk about football because we didn't play it, but I'm not super well versed in the X's and O's of the game. And listen, there can be a guy standing next to me who never played the game, and he understands it just as well as I do. So, not to discredit my understanding of the game of football, but I really understand basketball because I spent 22 years of my life, playing the sport. And so I would say that basketball is very enjoyable. And then to have teams, to be able to cover Auburn and go to the the Final Four a few years ago, to the national championship in Minnesota, to be able to cover Alabama, who was just a Sweet 16 team, and then they were 2 years ago as well. It's fun to be able to cover successful programs, and luckily we've been blessed not only on the football field but also on the basketball court here in the state of Alabama to be able to have both.
What do you enjoy what do you enjoy about covering Alabama, Auburn, like those SEC schools? Because I know LSU and Alabama's big rivalry. I
Yeah,
know what it's like to cover LSU. I've been to Bryant-Denny
sure.
twice now, and it's a crazy environment. What do you enjoy about it?
Yeah, again, I go back to the passion, and I go back to the fan bases and the stories. For a lot of for our area, a lot of our local guys, our most talented guys, go on to play for Alabama and for Auburn. And so to see those guys who were once freshmen at Baker High School or a local high school, and then for them to go be in the SEC and to have success at that level, it's very cool to see them grow up. Like Kool-Aid McKinstry, for example, he's an Alabama defensive back. I covered him in high school for several years, and to now see him at the next level, to be an All-American guy and to have the career that he has is really rewarding. It's almost like watching my own kid like grow up and like have success. But that the atmosphere really is unmatched. And with all credit to LSU, because I've been to Death Valley, and I mean, it's an unbelievable atmosphere. And those fans, there's nothing better than game day at LSU. I mean, I've been there probably three
I agree.
times, and when you walk up and you got the gumbo going, I mean, these folks, like, they're so welcoming. A lot of people want to like criticize LSU fans. I love them personally because they've always been super sweet to me, offering food, saying hello and welcoming. I'm sure when the Alabama bus rolls up that there's some things said, and that's what makes rivalries so great. But Death Valley is awesome. Bryant-Denny is awesome. Jordan-Hare is awesome. And so it's just the atmospheres in the SEC. They're just unmatched. They really are. And it's extremely rewarding, and it's a huge blessing to be able to cover these schools.
What would you say is your biggest accomplishment of your career thus far?
Hmm. My biggest accomplishment. That's a hard question because it's hard to answer, so to speak, because I have, I guess, won awards. Okay. So I've gotten to do really, really cool things. One, sportscaster of the year or sports program of the year. But, I've gotten to cover, 5 national championships. I've gotten to go to all the way to Pasadena, California, to the Georgia Dome for the SEC championship games. Obviously, not only Alabama, but Auburn has had success as well. So those are really, really cool, but not really something that I necessarily accomplished myself. Obviously, the teams accomplished that. I just had the opportunity to go. But what I really pride myself on as a sports anchor is the relationships that I build with these athletes, with their families, and with coaches, because then you can tell stories better when you get to know people, when you get to know what matters to them outside of the sport. I think that that's when you can really grasp someone's story beyond who they are as just an athlete. For instance, I got to go to Hawaii with Tua Tagovailoa after he led Alabama in the national championship game. And it was very, very cool to go back to learn about his culture and to just explore all of Hawaii and have his hometown parade and just to exclusively have that coverage for our market in Birmingham. Things like that have been very, very rewarding for me. And I don't know if that's necessarily an accomplishment, but I would say that the relationships I've been able to build and the storytelling has really been the most rewarding for me.
What would you say is your ultimate career goal? If you could draw up the perfect job for yourself that you would never leave and want to do for the rest of your life, your dream job, what would that be?
Yeah, that's a good question. And if you would have asked me that question 10 years ago, I would have told you that I want to go be on ESPN or Fox Sports, or I want
I
to go
feel
be a
like
sideline reporter.
I
But
feel like that's a common answer I've been getting
sure,
when I asked that question. A lot of people have been saying, like, if you would have asked me a few years ago, I would have gave you a completely different answer than now.
yeah.
So
Yeah, and I think that that's becoming a common thing for me, and maybe for different people. I think that some folks maybe like to cover their hometown. Some folks maybe just fall in love with the city. For me, I came to Mobile as my first job, and 10 years later, I'm back in Mobile, Alabama, as a sports director. I have a son who is my life. My husband has a great career here, and I love what I'm doing. So what does my life look like 10 years from now? It's hard to say, but if it's where I'm at right now, I'm going to be thrilled because I love what I do. I love this TV station in this market. I love covering Alabama and Auburn football. And so it's hard. It's not that I don't have like career aspirations, but I feel like I'm kind of living what I love every single day. And so I want to be very, very good at what I do and tell stories at a high level and touch a lot of lives doing what I do here. But I'm very, very happy here. And so I think that career goals change over time, whether it's because of family or because you just fall in love with a place or you fall in love with a person, who knows? I mean, but things change. And I think that the more that people go into the business knowing that, the happier that they're going to be with wherever it is that they settle or wherever it is that they end up.
So I'm getting ready to graduate soon. I'm on the hunt for a job right now. A lot
Okay.
of stress, a lot of stuff going on.
Sure.
Do you have any advice for an aspiring sports reporter?
Yeah, I have a ton of advice. One is learn everything and be willing to do anything. Because when in this business, the more versatile that you are, the better that you are. The more you can be on camera, great. The more you can be off camera, great. Learn how to shoot, learn how to edit, get comfortable on the air. And internships at the college level, I mean, I just cannot talk about how much I learned from internships when I was in college and how much the hands-on experience meant to me. Because yes, getting a degree matters. You have to check a box, of course, but that's not where I learned how to do broadcast. I learned it being in the TV, being in the building, being at a TV station, learning from people who were in the business. But I'll say this to you, right now is a very unique time in television. People are getting really, really good jobs right out of school. That didn't happen 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I applied for jobs all over the country. And I heard back from like 5 people, maybe. And I applied for hundreds of jobs. And now we are hiring people fresh out of school every single day. I mean, we have folks that are 6 months after graduating, they're on the air, the next month. And so take advantage of that. Take advantage of what the market is like right now. Take advantage of what the business is like, because it's a rare opportunity and one that that students that are up and coming and students that are looking to graduate should not take for granted.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining
Cool.
us on this episode of Behind the Mic in the SEC. Join us next week where we'll have another guest from another SEC school.